What if the ground beneath you suddenly disappeared? Or a monstrous wave wiped out an entire city in minutes? Throughout history, nature has unleashed its fury in ways that defy imagination, leaving destruction, tragedy, and unforgettable stories behind. In this video, we'll dive into the top 10 most dangerous natural disasters ever recorded. From deadly earthquakes to unstoppable tsunamis, we'll uncover the terrifying moments that change the world forever. Stay with me until the end, because the number one disaster might just be the most devastating event in human history. December 26, 2004, just one day after Christmas. Families were vacationing, enjoying the warm beaches of Southeast Asia. No one had any idea that deep beneath the ocean, something catastrophic was about to unfold. A massive 9.1 magnitude earthquake struck off the coast of Sumatra, Indonesia, triggering one of the deadliest tsunamis in recorded history. In just minutes, the ocean pulled back unnaturally, exposing the seabed. Moments later, a monstrous wave, over 100 feet high, came crashing down, obliterating everything in its path. Entire towns were wiped off the map. In Indonesia, Sri Lanka, India, and Thailand, homes, hotels, and streets vanished beneath the raging water. The tsunami moved so fast, up to 500 miles per hour, that many never saw it coming. By the time it was over, more than 230,000 people had lost their lives. But in the middle of this devastation, one young girl became an unexpected hero. 10-year-old Tilly Smith from the UK was vacationing with her family in Thailand when she noticed something strange. The ocean was rapidly retreating, just like she had learned in school about tsunamis. She started yelling for everyone to run. Her warning saved hundreds of lives as people rushed to safety before the wave struck. One school lesson, one little girl, hundreds of lives saved. But not all disasters give warning signs, and sometimes, the deadliest ones strike without mercy. Let's move to number 9. March 11, 2011. Just another Friday afternoon in Japan. People were working, kids were at school, and life seemed completely normal until 2:46 p.m. Without warning, the ground began to shake violently, one of the strongest earthquakes ever recorded. A staggering 9.1 magnitude quake struck just off Japan's northeastern coast. In Tokyo, skyscrapers swayed like trees in the wind. But the worst was yet to come. The earthquake triggered a massive tsunami. Waves up to 130 feet high swallowed entire towns in the Tohoku region. Cars, homes, and buildings were swept away like paper. Thousands of people ran, but the water was too fast. Within minutes, over 18,000 lives were lost. And then, disaster struck again. The tsunami flooded the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, causing one of the worst nuclear meltdowns since Chernobyl. Radiation leaked into the air and water, forcing 150,000 people to evacuate. To this day, Fukushima remains a ghost town, frozen in time, abandoned, and contaminated. But amidst the chaos, one small fishing town defied the odds. The people of Fudai had built a 50-foot-high tsunami wall, despite years of criticism for its cost. On that fateful day, as the waves surged in, the wall held firm, protecting the entire town. While nearby villages were wiped out, Fudai was left standing, a rare victory against nature's wrath. A chilling reminder that sometimes the best defense is preparation. August 29th, 2005. A monster storm roared toward the Gulf Coast. With winds reaching 175 miles per hour, Hurricane Katrina wasn't just another storm. It was about to become one of the worst disasters in American history. As Katrina made landfall in Louisiana and Mississippi, entire neighborhoods were torn apart. Buildings collapsed, roads disappeared, and power lines snapped like twigs. But the true nightmare began when the levees broke in New Orleans. The city, built below sea level, was suddenly drowning. Floodwaters surged through the streets, reaching rooftops in hours. Thousands of people were stranded, some trapped in attics, others clinging to their roofs, waiting for help that wouldn't come for days. Hospitals lost power, shelters overflowed, over 1,800 lives were lost, and damages soared past $125 billion, making Katrina the costliest hurricane in U.S. history. A storm this powerful should have been just another chapter in history. But Katrina exposed a deeper crisis, one of unpreparedness, failed systems, and the vulnerability of entire communities. In 1931, China faced a disaster so immense that it's still the deadliest flood in recorded history. It began with an unusually harsh winter. Heavy snowfall covered the land, but when spring arrived, the rapid snowmelt caused rivers to rise dangerously. Then came the rains, months of relentless downpours. By the summer, China's three largest rivers, the Yangtze, the Yellow, and the Huai, had swollen beyond control. In July, the unthinkable happened. Dams collapsed, levees broke, and entire villages were swallowed by the raging waters. The city of Wuhan was completely submerged, and in Nanjing, floodwaters reached the rooftops. Millions were trapped with no escape. But drowning wasn't the only killer. Famine and disease followed. Fields were destroyed, crops washed away, and drinking water turned deadly. Cholera and typhoid spread like wildfire, turning an already horrific disaster into an unstoppable catastrophe. When it was over, between 2 and 4 million people had lost their lives. A reminder that sometimes the most dangerous disasters don't come from fire or earthquakes, but from water. But if you think this was bad, imagine a disaster so violent that it caused the deadliest earthquake in human history. Let's move to number 6. It happened in the dead of night. January 23rd, 1556. The people of Shaanxi, China, were fast asleep, unaware that in just seconds, their world would crumble around them. At around 10 p.m., the earth roared to life. A massive 8.0 magnitude earthquake struck, shaking the ground so violently that entire mountains collapsed. The force was so powerful, it was felt across 500 miles. But the worst part? Most people lived in yaodongs, homes carved directly into cliffs and hillsides. When the quake hit, these homes became death traps. Landslides buried thousands alive, and entire villages were erased from existence. The destruction didn't stop after the shaking ended. Fires broke out. The ground split open. For weeks, aftershocks continued to level anything still standing. In total, over 830,000 lives were lost, making this the deadliest earthquake in recorded history. Centuries later, the scars of this earthquake remain, reminding us just how unstoppable the forces of nature can be. April 10, 1815. The island of Sumbawa, Indonesia. Villagers had seen smoke rising from Mount Tambora for days, but no one could have predicted what was coming. That night, the earth roared. Mount Tambora, a volcano standing nearly 14,000 feet tall, erupted with unimaginable force. The most powerful volcanic explosion in recorded history. An eruption so violent, it was heard over 1,200 miles away. A column of fire and ash shot 28 miles into the sky. Entire villages were buried under lava and rock. A pyroclastic surge, a wave of superheated gas and ash, swept across the island at hundreds of miles per hour, instantly incinerating anything in its path. More than 100,000 people lost their lives, but the real catastrophe was just beginning. Mount Tambora's eruption wasn't just a local disaster, it changed the world. Ash and sulfur filled the atmosphere, blocking the sun and cooling the planet by nearly 5 degrees Fahrenheit. The following year, 1816, became known as the year without a summer. Across North America and Europe, crops failed, Livestock died, and people starved. Snow fell in June. Rivers froze in July. Skies turned an eerie shade of orange. The world had never seen anything like it. But out of this darkness, something unexpected happened. A young writer named Mary Shelley, trapped indoors by the endless storms, wrote a novel to pass the time. A book that would become legendary. Its name? Frankenstein. A chilling reminder that nature's wrath doesn't just take lives. Sometimes it reshapes history itself. November 8th, 2013. The Philippines braced for impact. But what came that day wasn't just a typhoon. It was a Category 5 superstorm, one of the most powerful ever recorded. With winds reaching 195 miles per hour, Haiyan tore through the islands like a giant blade. Entire cities were flattened in seconds. The coastal city of Tacloban was hit by a massive storm surge, waves rising over 20 feet, swallowing everything in their path. Thousands of families were swept away. Boats, cars, even houses floated like paper. Survivors clung to rooftops, trees, anything that could keep them above the deadly floodwaters. But the worst part? There was nowhere to run. By the time the storm passed, over 6,300 lives were lost. Entire communities were left in ruins, and millions were displaced. It took years for the Philippines to recover, and Haiyan remains one of the deadliest and most destructive storms in history. But now, imagine a disaster so massive it turned an entire city to ash in a matter of minutes. Let's move on to number 3. August 24th, 79 AD. The Roman city of Pompeii was alive with activity. Markets were bustling, people were drinking wine in the streets, and gladiators were preparing for their next fight. No one realized that a ticking time bomb was right next to them. Mount Vesuvius, a towering volcano just miles away, suddenly erupted. A massive explosion sent a column of ash, rock, and fire over 20 miles into the sky. The people of Pompeii watched in terror as fiery debris rained down. But the worst was yet to come. A pyroclastic surge, hotter than 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit, rushed down the volcano at nearly 400 miles per hour. There was no time to run, no time to escape. In an instant, the city was buried alive. For nearly 1,700 years, Pompeii remained lost, hidden beneath layers of volcanic ash. When archaeologists finally uncovered it in the 18th century, they found something eerie. Bodies, perfectly preserved in the exact positions they died. Some were shielding their loved ones. Others were covering their faces. It was a city frozen in time. Today, millions visit the ruins of Pompeii, walking its silent streets, staring at the faces of people who lived and died in a single horrifying moment. A haunting reminder of how, in the face of nature, even the greatest civilizations can be wiped out in an instant. August 27, 1883. The world was about to witness one of the most violent natural disasters in history. The small island of Krakatoa, nestled between Java and Sumatra, had been rumbling for months. But no one expected what happened next. A series of 4 explosions, so powerful they shattered the island itself, sent shockwaves around the world. The final blast? It was so loud it was heard over 3,000 miles away, like an unimaginable cannon echoing across continents. People in Australia, and even as far as Mauritius, reported hearing it. But the real destruction came from the tsunamis. Waves over 100 feet high crashed into the surrounding coastlines. Entire villages were wiped off the map. More than 36,000 people lost their lives. And the effects didn't stop there. The eruption launched tons of ash into the atmosphere, darkening the skies. The world's temperature dropped, and for months the sunsets turned a strange, eerie red. An explosion loud enough to be heard across the world. But what if I told you there was an event even deadlier? Let's move to number 1. It wasn't an earthquake, it wasn't a flood, and it wasn't a volcano. But it was, without a doubt, one of the deadliest disasters in human history. The year was 1347. A fleet of ships arrived in Sicily, carrying a silent killer. On board, most of the crew were already dead. Those who weren't were covered in horrific black boils, oozing blood and pus. The disease spread fast, unstoppable. In just a few years, it wiped out up to 60% of Europe's population. Cities became silent graveyards. Streets were filled with corpses stacked like firewood. The air was thick with the smell of death. People didn't understand what was happening. Some believed it was a punishment from God. Others blamed witches, Jews, or even the stars. Fear ruled the land, and entire villages were abandoned overnight. By the time the Black Death had run its course, between 75 and 200 million people were gone. Society would never be the same. But in the darkest moments of history, humanity always finds a way to rise again. Disasters like these remind us of our fragility, but also of our resilience. And with that, we wrap up our list of the 10 most dangerous natural disasters in history. Stay safe, and always be prepared. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing. It really helps the channel and motivates me to keep creating more content like this. Thank you for watching and stay safe.